In 1992, Manic Street Preachers released their debut album Generation Terrorists to huge global success, selling 16 million copies around the world and splitting up in a blaze of glory, spray paint and makeup, or at least that was their infamous plan.
We wouldn't say things like we would want to be the biggest band in the world and sell 60 million albums if we didn't know we had good songs.
In reality, the band have gone on to create a fantastic body of work, enrapturing a devoted global fan base and becoming a national treasure in the UK along the way. But there is one location they have remained firmly a cult interest: the United States. This is a band who attracted 60,000 fans to join them on New Year's Eve 1999 at the Cardiff Millennium Stadium to see in the dawn of a new century, with a global TV audience of 2 billion people watching them. It was the biggest indoor gig ever staged up to that point. And yet their anonymity in the US leaves them in this unique position. Carwyn Jones once described them in an article for the BBC as being the world's most famous unknown band. So how did Wales' greatest group end up leaving so little an impression on the largest music market in the world? And what have most American rock fans been missing out on? Welcome to 2020 Sound, the channel where we take a look back at the overlooked in indie and alternative rock history. If that sounds like something you'd like to watch more videos about, then do please subscribe. Manic Street Preachers. To describe this band as being overlooked, having grown up with them as one of the most iconic bands of 90s British rock, it feels absurd to describe them like that. But their relative obscurity over in America leaves them in this fascinating position. The 2015 documentary No Manifesto by American director Elizabeth Marcus explores this a little, with drummer Sean Moore at one point stating, "We've had 14 top 10 hits, 31 consecutive top 40 hits, sold millions of albums, and people still don't know who we are." The documentary at one point uses this footage from the 1998 Q Magazine Awards, which compares the relative UK and US album sales of the Manics and a few of their contemporaries at the time. And you can see in that year, The Verve had a bumper year. They sold over 3 million records at home thanks to the success of Urban Hymns. You had Radiohead selling 1.4 million. Oasis 1.8 million, and the Manics sold about 1.3 million. So back home in the UK, they were all selling, roughly around the same sort of ballpark. But then when you look at the United States record sales, the Verve was scoring, I think, 1.4 million record sales. Radiohead were out in front with 2.4 million. Oasis were just over 1 million, and the Manics, 25,475. A tiny fraction of their sales at home. It's partly so stark because at the peak of their powers in the 90s, and even well before that, the Manics commanded an adoration from their fan base that few other bands have ever achieved. They're a real onion band. If you just want well-written rock with big choruses that you can sing along with, they've got that for days. They've filled arenas with that over and over. But if you start peeling those layers, there's depth there. Interviews and lyrics that draw you into deeper exploration, literary references, philosophy, art, history. They glorified and glamorized intelligence and politics. As bassist and lyricist Nicky Wire put it in that No Manifesto documentary, "More fans of ours have gone into education than they have gone into bands." They sang from the fringes, touching on everything from depression to sexual confusion, and they did it all whilst presenting such a strong, united front that it was inevitable that they would become a magnet for misfits. The characteristics that would have got you bullied at school are the same qualities that they prized. So if you didn't feel like you fit in anywhere, this band, this tribe, offered you solace and strength. Few bands have connected as deeply with their fan base on levels beyond the music as the Manics have. But in some ways, it's probably aspects of some of those things that inspired such devotion at home that probably put them at a disadvantage in the US, being so fiercely left-wing and atheistic and having a song called "If White America Told the Truth for One Day, Its World Would Fall Apart." Those things probably made them quite a difficult sell on a wide scale. Plus, there's the fact that they gave some of the most entertainingly arrogant and purposefully provocative interviews of the 90s, which made great reading when you'd see them make statements like they're going to go on top of the pops and set fire to themselves. But they probably didn't do themselves any favours when they played a gig in New York in 1992 and Nicky Wire said from the stage that the only good thing about America is that you killed John Lennon. But this is a band who've written some of the greatest rock songs of the last 30 years, especially during the alternative rock boom. So for them to have resonated so little across the pond is still fascinating. With their debut album Generation Terrorists, they styled themselves as a hybrid of The Clash, Public Enemy and Guns N' Roses, with the latter influence being the one that dominated their sound. The album has a real slick LA rock sound to it. Aside from lyrics that are a scathing attack on consumerism, Motorcycle Emptiness boasts all the hallmarks of an instant classic rock radio staple. It's up there alongside Sweet Child of Mine in that regard, and has a similarly immortal guitar line. Musically, it sounds like it could have been a ginormous hit in the States at one point in time if it had the right exposure. But perhaps landing in 1992 at the height of grunge, maybe it sounded a little passé. The production on the whole album is very 80s rock. Plus, while the music is very LA, lyrically you've got songs like NatWest Barclays Midlands Lloyds, named after 4 British banks, comparing them to fascist regimes. So it's probably not as easy to digest for mass American tastes as Warrant's Cherry Pie. With the follow-up album Gold Against the Soul, things got a little grittier. Nicky Wire said that the band were listening to a lot of Alice in Chains at that time, and you can kind of hear it in songs like Sleep Flower and Yourself. It's gloomy but glossy with it. They haven't yet delved into the mud and the mire that they soon would. Still, Gold has some tremendous moments on it, from Despair to Where being one of the band's first string-laden epics. Orchestral parts were a common feature in late 90s British indie rock, from The Verve to Embrace to Pure Essence, and I think the Manics played a big role in making that fashionable. But this album also highlights another possible reason that the band weren't built for wide-scale success in America: singer James Dean Bradfield's unique enunciation. I love James Dean Bradfield. He's a triple threat. Amazing guitarist, fantastic music writer, and in my opinion one of the greatest rock singers of all time. He's able to capture everything from furious intensity to the most tender beauty. But his enunciation is so off the wall, it's sometimes impossible to tell what he's saying. Gold Against the Soul has probably my favourite example of this, in the fantastic La Tristeza Guerrera, a song about an elderly war veteran which includes the line, Things got much darker with the band's third album, The Holy Bible, the magnum opus of Richey Edwards, the band's co-lyricist and rhythm guitarist who disappeared just 6 months after the album's release. The Holy Bible remains an overwhelming tour de force and tour of Richey's psyche, exploring topics like anorexia, mass murder, sexual exploitation, serial killers, and all different kinds of suffering. The music and the lyrics marry perfectly to create one of the most relentlessly oppressive albums I've ever heard. It makes In Utero sound like 12 cover versions of Club Tropicana. It was in a sense a commercial nightmare, but in some ways I kind of think it was their best chance of success in America. Coming out as it did a year after In Utero, the same year as The Downward Spiral and a year before Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, disturbing as it is, music about mental anguish and torment had probably never sold as many records before. In a tragic parallel to Joy Division's Ian Curtis, Richey disappeared on the eve of the band's 1995 American tour. Had that not happened, had the band been able to go over to America and actually promote the album in person, had more ears over there been exposed to the power and the ferocity of Faster? Perhaps things would have turned out completely differently. In the aftermath of Richey's disappearance came the band's fourth album, and their first is a three-piece, Everything Must Go, and it stands alongside the Holy Bible for me as the band's 1-2 punch of greatness. Both so different, but both so fantastic. If the Holy Bible was a snapshot of horrors that became tragically tangible, like an attempt to exorcise all kinds of demons that as a listener you just can't look away from, then Everything Must Go is the light at the end of that tunnel. It's this band of childhood friends trying to find a way through tragedy, and in that process capturing glory. The album aches with defiance and triumph. And nothing captures that better than A Design for Life. It's the first song I ever heard by them, the first song I ever bought by them, and I seem to just love it more with each passing year. Mike Hedges' production is a big part of that. He captures sweeping grandeur so well, as he did the year prior on McCalmont and Butler's Yes. Design for Life works so tremendously for me because of the tension between the music and the lyrics. The song is an exploration of working class identity, and the words throw these cliches and dead ends at you. We don't talk about love, we only want to get drunk, and we are not allowed to spend. The music subverts all of that. It injects the lyrics with this dignity and indignant determination that there is hope, there is a future, and you are not defined by other people's expectations and pigeonholes. It's an incredible song and an incredible album. One which finally propelled the band to significant success in the UK, but still barely made a dent in America. This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours followed in a similar fashion. Huge UK sales, very little response stateside, by which time the 90s were coming to an end, and the window of opportunity that the alternative rock boom had opened had pretty much closed. The Manics have still created some fantastic music this side of the millennium, particular highlights for me being 2007's Send Away the Tigers and 2009's Journal for Plague Lovers, and they still continue to stand for something. At the time of making this video, the band are due to play 2 free arena shows for National Health Service staff as a token of their appreciation for all their work during the current crisis, which I think is such a classy move and speaks volumes about them as people. The Manics have always been about more than just music, but the music's pretty bloody great. So if you've never encountered this band before, I wholeheartedly urge you to give them a try. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your favourite Manic songs and albums in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then do please give it a like and share it with anyone else who you think may enjoy it. And if you'd like to watch more videos all about overlooked music from indie and alternative rock history, then do please subscribe.